Potentially one of the most universally frustrating experience has to be when you know you have to call customer support, right? It's especially more difficult when it's a place that you're a member of, or it's your insurance company or something like that, where you know you're going to have to go through some type of an automation tree to first figure out why you're calling, and second, for them to verify who you are, all automated, of course. And you go through it, you find the card, you enter the number, you do all the prompts, you do everything. And you finally get to that point where they're transferring you over to a person. And the hope that you have, what I would hope would be happening here in 2026, is that that information that you had entered would actually be then passed on to the person you're going to talk to so that they know why you're calling. They know all the information you put in, they know who you are. But inevitably, we all know what happens. You talk to that person, they have no idea who you are. They have no idea why you're calling, and you have to go through the whole process again. What was the point of doing it all before? If I hadn't done it before, I wouldn't be frustrated, but I am frustrated because I went through the process and it wasn't even captured or acknowledged in any way meaningful to my conversation that I'm having. We talked a little bit about that today on the show, as that's not the experience we want our buyers to have when they're engaging with us. We have wonderful AI tools at our disposal, and we need to make sure that we're not providing a frustrating experience, but instead we're providing a great experience, both for the buyer and for our sales teams. We're all more aware of the conversations that have been going on, the learning, and why we're all sitting here talking to each other. That was a large part of what we're talking about in our show today. So, everyone, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. My name is Jack Cochran, General Manager of Presales Collective, and this is the Presales Podcast. And today's episode, we had Nalin Senthamil, who is the founder and CEO of Storylane, on the call. Storylane is one of our partners here at Presales Collective, and they are a leader in the demo automation space. Nalin is a serial entrepreneur with multiple exits. Prior to founding companies, he also worked at Amazon building AI systems, so very knowledgeable on the space. And I really enjoyed talking to him a little bit about, from his perspective, where do we see things going for AI this year and beyond, and some good takeaways on what you should be focusing on and doing right now as it pertains to your team and AI and the broader sales team and how to get started. So let's take you right to the episode right after the break. Tired of endless demo requests eating up your calendar? Your prospects want to experience your product instantly, but traditional demos mean more scheduling, more prep time, and more repetitive presentations. Meet Storylane, the leading demo automation platform for pre-sales teams. Create personalized, interactive demos in minutes, not hours. Capture your software in a few clicks, customize environments without code, and build a library of demos that just work. Share demos anywhere, embed in your sales sequences, display at conference booths, present reliable sandbox environments during live demos. Try Storylane for free at storylane.io. That's STORYLANE.io. Storylane. Build killer demos in 2 minutes. Nalin, welcome to the Presales Podcast.
Thank you.
Very excited to have you here today. As we're kicking stuff off, I know I'm interested in this. I've looked at your background on LinkedIn and seen some of the things that you've written. I'd love to have you just kind of walk us through your career journey. What got you to where you're at today, being founder and CEO of Storylane? What is it that got you to this point?
I've been a founder for a few years. My journey started literally with, I'm a technical person, technical background, and then started as an AI engineer back then to ML in Amazon. Then I was a CTO in a tech company. There, I actually had a large engineering team and also had a demo team specifically because what we were building. We had a demo team of around 20 people at that point. And this is back in 2012 to 2016. And we used to do POCs we were selling to industrial customers. So that was one part in the startup where I had a big demo team. We fly in, show the big POCs because these were $1 million deals that we were trying to do at that time. After that startup, I went and founded a company which was completely different around PLG model, which is self-serve model. And then we exited the company. Then when I was looking at what's next, Storylane, before we started, it was more about like, hey, it goes back into tying back into your moments as a startup founders in different places. And you look at what's the problem that we're looking at to solve. So I felt like there is a big marrying that can be done in terms of how people look at demos from PLG perspective, from getting a buyer in to even to a POC stages, because I've been on both the sides of the world in 2 startups that I did before. And kind of that led to Storylane in a lot of ways. And then we said, like, how do we tie this together? And we started building this, and it turned into a demo automation category. Now we serve 5,000 plus customers through that, selling to both marketing from a buying perspective, top of the funnel, and also the pre-sales from very clearly from the mid funnel where they're evaluating. So that's kind of the journey where it took. A lot of times it's more like you draw inspirations from what you built, and that's how it started.
It's crazy thinking about just the structure of teams from what they were, demo engineering teams, SC teams from then until now, and how that's changed. And I know a lot of what you've been doing at Storylane has been focusing on kind of that changing and growing of pre-sales teams. In an article that you wrote last year following the acquisition you had of Prescale, you were talking about how that pre-sales was really that key function of you that you were focusing on for last year. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that, about like what specific gaps were you seeing and how AI was serving pre-sales teams, and what did you think demo automation vendors were missing then, and what are they kind of missing right now?
The biggest impact we see with demo automation is around pre-sales. And I'll tell you a little bit about what we see. Two parts, right? Marketers look at it like CAC. I mean, everybody's familiar with CAC. Like there's a cost to acquire these customers. And also when it comes down, after you get into the pipeline, there is a cost per demo. So that happens a lot actually, which is talked a little less everywhere, but there is, right? And there is a lot of cost per demo that happens. And the impact is from demo automation on the cost per demo is significant because we can dramatically bring it down. That's what we saw in general when we started looking at demo automation, how Storylane can impact. And I see that again in two ways, right? Where like, if you look at it as a sales engineer, where you spend most of your time is in the demo prep, building the custom solutions. I've lived through that before. So the cost is basically like in terms of the overhead, building it, setting up custom. And I have a customer of Nutanix where building a VM virtual machine clouds and everything costs like in six figures, right? Even do one instance of those things, right? For a demo. So that's dramatic. And now you want to scale this up, it's huge cost for the company itself. So there is a lot of cost around it where what we do is like through what we saw the value is like, how do we automate these things? How do we use AI so that the data can be pre-filled and ready to available? So it saves a lot of SC's overhead time itself. And then we also saw the other part where it was very useful from a sales rep, because always SCs join these calls unnecessarily where their time is being used, where we felt there's like AEs can have predefined templated demos with clear talk tracks that they can show it during live calls. We saw those kind of gaps where there's administrative overloads that's happening a lot. And we felt like automating many of these things. And now where AI comes in is like the data and time to go live and prep for that is literally 5 to 10 minutes for a lot of them. So that's a big, big win, actually. That's basically where we saw it. And that's how we've been penetrating through the market. And we're seeing them being used quite a lot. And I think you asked in the last part, like, what do other vendors miss? And I think the biggest thing that they miss is the time to value using AI to spin out things very quickly, right? There are nuts and bolts of it, but you need to build it inside the systems so that, we call it like the infra level. You have to think about it, AI. It's not about an add-on. So that's one gap that we see a lot.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of that add-on is kind of what a lot of companies have been focusing on, right? How can we add AI onto what we do as opposed to it being kind of more fundamental, or as you said, on the infrastructure level of things? I definitely see that is difficult as well. If you're taking something that's existing and you're like, there is an opportunity to have AI be a part of this product, how to not make it something that's just a bolt-on, right? As opposed to something that's more fundamental to your product.
That's right. So we call it like building a knowledge, kind of think of a knowledge lake that you're building, right? Behind the scenes. What's serving can change, but what you build at the back end infra level, what we call it, right? That remains the same. So the fundamentals become stronger. Then now you're able to launch different solutions to your buyers, right? Be it different product lines and everything. So that's basically what fundamentally differentiates us in how we build on things as well. And that allows you to innovate at a rapid pace, because in the AI is moving at an incredible pace. And what's 1 year back, I mean, if you look at it like Claude, I think if you're all familiar, they're like launched 3.5 a year back. They've already deprecated that. They moved to 4.5. We got a note last week. So things go at that speed, and it's fundamental for companies and the vendors that you're choosing as a buyer. Like, you need to pick someone who's building the infra levels that's very solid.
Right. So I've not heard a lot of vendors talk about the actual cost of acquiring a customer or the cost per demo being a fundamental reason why they're looking at demo automation or demo technology in any way, because a lot of what I see and a lot of what is out there from the marketing perspective focuses more on the ease of use side of it for SCs, or the thing you even mentioned before, which is providing account executives or salespeople with a tooling that they can use. But I think you're absolutely right. As someone who has spent either a lot of time managing and maintaining demo environments themselves, understanding the cost of the infrastructure, especially if you're spinning up production cloud-based instances in order to actually run a demo, it can be very costly, not opportunity cost, but actually the cost of the infrastructure itself. Is this across the board that everyone has this cost? Like, how pervasive is that? Like, if I'm trying to build a case to bring in some technology, how much should I focus on this within my own company?
We see this quite across the board. The cost can be different and varying, and it can be a cost from your infrastructure, like you mentioned. And a lot of times we forget about the cost involved in the overhead of people being involved in evaluating certain things as well, right? So there is a cost where you set up a meeting, as simple as that, and you bring in 5 people. Then there is a cost to that to set up and plan around it. And I think what happens is there is a company cost that I call it, like, which happens because of the demos that these spun up too, right? So each company will be different. So some will be spinning up a cloud virtual infrastructure. That's a exorbitant cost around that, just as a separate add-on for them. But generally, we see a bottom line cost, which are very generic. And that is like people, overhead that comes in, the meetings, the time. And also it depends on your customers that you are serving. And if there is a lot more personalization that's needed, maybe you are in, and you have a lot more security structures involved, like you're in fintech, or you're serving in the B2C where you have to serve a lot more personalized recommendations. So then what you're trying to do is there's like an engineering cost associated with that. Like a lot of times you're building custom solution scripting. So there is varied costs, but across the board, we see that definitely with a lot of the customers who start using it.
Yeah, definitely something that I think is a little bit of the overlooked side of it. That is, a lot of times when we're looking at technology as pre-sales teams, we're looking at things that can help to either make our lives easier, help to increase or make the sale more effective. But in order to get that across the finish line with, your finance team, or even with whoever owns the budget, whether that's your CRO or your VP of sales or your regional VP, whoever that is, cost is going to be a big factor. And if you can say, hey, not only is this going to do all those soft pieces that we talked about making us more effective, making our presentations more effective, but also this will cost us less, that can help to really push this over the line as far as something that you could do.
Well, one of the recent customer of ours came on board, and for them, POC and demo, that reminds me about the cost is they fly every time they have to do a POC. They travel across the US for selling to the customers. The cost of putting 2 people going and doing a POC, there's like, we're talking about infrastructure spinning out costs, but this is the flight. Presales was doing that 10 years back. But now after that in Zoom and everything, like you can just show up and then do everything, but they still have to do these things for running up. And think of like taking a flight, going in there and your POC and you're running a demo and it's not perfect. Like the amount of cost they're wearing down is quite a lot now. So those are a lot of cases that we're seeing too.
That just makes sense to really try and do that. I mean, anything we can do to cut down the cost. But as you're mentioning, it's sort of changing the way that we're working. One thing that comes to mind as we're thinking about it, the pre-sales role is changing fundamentally because of a lot of things that we're seeing in AI. And I don't think we're necessarily saying pre-sales is becoming obsolete, although I know many people do worry about that. But, whether it's new agents that are coming out, whether it's, demo prep or demo engineering software, AI is definitely changing the game for pre-sales teams. Would love to kind of hear a bit from your perspective on what are the things that we maybe in 5 years from now, we're going to be leaving behind completely for AI versus what are the things that are going to remain distinctly human in 2026 and beyond?
I'm not of the book of pre-sales jobs will be gone, right? So I'm not. That's not the group I belong to. And I hear you, there is a lot. So I think that fundamentally comes because of a little less understanding of how AI is evolving and transforming as well. So I look at pre-sales and say, like, if you put them into for the sake of simplicity, different buckets of what they do, right? So there is like a strategy and solutioning that they do a lot. And then this POC and demos. There's a lot of administrative work they do, right? Administrative work could be like keeping track of the POCs, answering RFPs and everything. And there's a product knowledge that they have, right? Because inherently, because of all of these things, they get a lot of product tribal knowledge that's in their head, right? That comes up, which they provide back to the product teams and everything. So what I do feel in AI is like, if you are thinking about it, The most important thing will be strategy and solutioning, and strategy and thinking around it, and relationship building is something that will not go away. That's something that's going to be very human in nature, and that's going to be something that you will own a lot more of. Unfortunately, today, when you do all of these four, what happens is they spend like 15-20% of their time. Time goes in other places. Now, what that's going to happen is they're going to spend majority of the time here, and AI is going to start automating other areas where they spend it, like demos. Demo prep, we talked about it, automating a lot of these things and having the instances available quickly in less than 1/10 of your time that you're spending is incredibly valuable for them. Like Q&A. So there's a lot of tools in the market. You can just use ChatGPT and Claude and put in the documents and ask questions for the RFPs, right? All you have to do is like start using the tools and you'll be able to become more productive. And this product tribal knowledge also that you're gaining, it's going into your company workspace and anybody can understand what's going on as well. So there's a lot of that being fed in as well. So most important, I would say, is like relationship building and strategy around it. And that's where the majority of the time will be for pre-sales. It's a good thing. I also want to add, like, it's not about like thinking about like, hey, my job function is reducing. No, not at all. The best analogy I can think of is like, think engineers, right? Any engineer coming out, incredibly technical, right? Software engineers. And now Claude Code and everything, like your co-pilots can write a lot of these things. Doesn't mean like engineers are going away. What it actually means is engineers are evolving now to be a product thinkers when they're coming on. It's not just writing code anymore. It's about like product thinkers. I believe sales engineers will be the same thing. They'll become strategists. I don't think we should call them engineers. It should become a strategist. And then they're going to be a lot more in the buyer's shoes and understanding and building the relationship. So it pushes the bar high. And it pushes not just their bar high, it actually pushes the bar of the reps also high, naturally. Because now reps have to be well aware of product. It can't be like just show the same thing. And they need to have the knowledge. So generally, that's what is going to happen a lot more, I see.
I think back to conversations I was having 5-6 years ago around how can we make what we do as pre-sales more valuable. And almost everyone that you talk to who's in pre-sales function today wants to be more of that strategist and less of the engineer, as you say. No, there are some people that enjoy that side of it, but I'd say the lion's share want to be more on that strategic level. They want to be in there talking about the more intangible parts of the deal, the value, the strategy of how implementing whatever it is that you're selling can help to change and make day-to-day better, make more revenue, add value to the bottom line of the company, whatever it is that your solve does. Pre-sales folks, generally speaking, want to be there. And I think you're right. Taking out the parts that are very repeatable, which is where AI can help with that, helps us to focus more on that piece of it, which is ultimately a good thing. So talking about the buyers a little bit, you were saying that the sellers, I like to focus in on them a little bit because there's always been this historical relationship between pre-sales people and sellers. I mean, I've been on the receiving end of a seller feeling like they can't get in front of the pre-sales person because what would happen if I get a question that I don't know an answer to? What would happen if they want to get more technical? What would happen? What if? But a lot of what we're seeing around, whether it's the fundamental demo tech, AI agents, or kind of as we're moving into more of the strategy side of things, salespeople are becoming, or should become, as you said, more capable of handling a lot of these early stage discovery and qualification of deals. How should we think about positioning that pre-sales sales makeup, given what we're seeing coming out with AI and agents?
I mean, if you talk about ratios, right? So I think that's one way to look at it, right? I mean, it's all over, right? Sometimes it can do 1:1 to 1:20, 30 also. It depends on the product, depends on the market, industry you're serving and everything. So what I do think they should start looking at it is bringing in the right tools and everything to augment your rep today, right? That's very, very important. And I think if you're not using tools today, that could be any of the AI tools in the market. If you're not using any of the tools, I would highly encourage to invest in it. And my suggestion is always like, don't look for an ROI immediately. It's like you're investing for your long term, right? I always recommend that way. The reason is like when you're investing for your long term, it's like a wealth building, right? You're investing for your long term. So think about these tools. AI is getting smarter and smarter, and everybody has the time to adopt it. Some people adopt it within a month, some people take 6 months, but it's here to stay, which means you start investing into that tool. Is your department wide or company wide, you start investing in those things a lot more. So what that will help us like inherently build the quality within the team itself and be more aware of what's out there, how to use for certain things, how to be well aware before the calls, post calls, before calls, and understand what the buyer is doing. you start turning this into a practice. That's the only way in which you're going to equip your reps more and more. And that comes from your pre-sales, and that comes from you to provide that kind of a knowledge back to the reps a lot. And frankly, it also comes from a lot from the company-wide initiatives also, which we see a lot more of C-suites taking up as like AI initiatives is super critical and they're driving that. And I think pre-sales, what they can do in terms of relation with reps is like start providing that information, this knowledge gap that exists for a while. And I do see, as you start looking at it, is like, you don't want pre-sales to be on these calls with reps because they need to be equipping. And what I do see is like a live assistance that will start happening a lot more in the next few months itself, where cloning your pre-sales or being that mind to help them as well. So that's not going to happen automatically, but that's going to happen with the knowledge from the pre-sales one, right? And then it's basically, that's what you will start seeing those effects. And that builds a relation between them.
I mean, if we're already at the point where what we're seeing people using during job interviews, kind of maybe in more of a negative sense, is an assistant to help me know how to kind of think about the question of being asked, that would be immensely helpful, I think, in a sales vein where I've got an assistant that's helping coach or guide, even if it's not saying, say this, is, by the way, they're asking about this, here's the resources, remember, that you have available to talk about, which is, I think, exciting. It's honestly, someone with me and all the conversations I have with people, staying focused on something is sometimes even just difficult. So just something you can say, this is where the conversation's about. This is what's been talked about. Here's where you can go, or something I can ask a question at. We're already seeing that embedded into things like Zoom and other webinar tools like that. Something that's pre-sales focused or sales focused even more broadly, that's got that deeper knowledge, I think is going to have immense value. I definitely agree with you there.
Totally. And that's one of the things which is exciting for us, and also the demo automation, is showing the right assets, showing the right content at the right moment, the right time during the conversation is super important. And having that so that you look prepared. You can do all the prep before, but during the conversations, if something comes up, and you're also pattern matching of what's a winning playbook versus a losing playbook, right? And providing the right content, not just content, but the assets, maybe your case study specifically, things like that becomes important. And what we see in the demo automation itself is we don't see a lot during the live. We see a lot of before, after, and during the live, it's more about just the demo. One of the things that we believe that will evolve is more and more is as a platform and turning demo automation more and more into like revenue enabler for the whole sales team will be this, right? Where you will be building out live assistants and they'll be able to see that as well. So something like that will be what I see in the next 12 months, a lot more prevalent.
I would love to see that. And next 12 months, that's a very exciting time. And it's crazy to think that we're at the point that we can do this, considering where we were, like you said, even just a year ago, right? Where the capabilities of where models were at versus where they are now is just vastly different, which I think if you'd spent any time doing anything with AI or with large language models or agents, you've definitely seen the advancement over this past year. And I think we're at a very crucial point of being able to actually have something meaningful to add to the sales team. And you're right. The right piece at the right time is incredibly important. And there's something that I've thought about from time to time, which is that a lot of times our account executives might be one of, they might be one of 10 at a smaller company, maybe one of 100 or of 1,000 at the bigger companies. And all they see is maybe the dozen or 24 deals that they work throughout the year. And they're trying to pattern match what wins and what works on their own against just those few limited deals. And you're right. If you have something which can help to say, these are the types of plays that are working, better than, marketing saying these are our gold standard approved talk tracks, but saying in these conversations, these are the things that have worked on deals that have progressed. That's valuable information for anyone working in sales. So aside from that, we talked a little bit about the coming agents with the pattern matching and everything else like that. What else does the pre-sales tech stack, AI or not AI, what does that look like? What's coming in 2026, 2027 from what you've seen?
One of the things is like we just launched a RepEx product. What we see is basically like how do we arm top of the funnel and also how do we arm pre-sales? So what we are going to start seeing a lot more is an agent that can even qualify, discover, and that is going to happen a lot more in 2026 for buyers. So you will see the buyers well informed about the product before coming into the mid-funnel. Demo automation was already doing that. It was giving them a sense of what the product is about so they can have a better qualified conversations with the reps, with the SCs at that point. Now, one of the big challenges that has always existed is like, hey, I got some sneak of it, but I want to ask some questions. I want to understand a bit more. 80% of the buyers don't want to get on a call, right? They want to first get that knowledge today because they want to feel smarter. With AI being everywhere, they want to feel equipped about the product, well aware. So what RepEx would do is give that knowledge to them. It will show the demos, walk them through the demos, answer all the questions. So what that will do is get the buyers well informed. And to me, in 2026, this is basically what is going to happen a lot more with every product starting to become like, how do we educate the buyers is how they're going to start thinking about well ahead. Two reasons, right? So every product has a competition in the market today. The competitor is a lot more than ever, right? So which means buyers have too many options and they want to narrow it down. So they don't have time to talk to so many people. And all they will do is like talk to an agent on their own language, their own time, understand what the product is doing. Then the downstream effect on pre-sales is going to be huge because pre-sales, now we talked about strategic relationship building. They're not going and doing discoveries and getting the calls and showing certain things. They are more tactical around it. They're talking about the nuances about the demos and they're being really strategic around it. So something that happens in the top of the funnel, it's going to have a big impact on pre-sales. And so they're well equipped and then they will be more strategic in their approaches itself. I do see a lot that's going to happen in 2026, definitely. Apart from the tools that are existing today, right? If you're not, in 2025, these tools, some of the tools exist from admin works that you can automate and everything. If you're not, you have to do that because looking at 2026 and beyond, these are the things that I see in the market and the trend. And this is what we are doing as well that's coming up now so that the pre-sales teams can be prepared.
I like what you're saying about kind of the framing of RepEx, right? And the framing of a lot of what I think was pitched poorly a few years ago, which was around these agents that would be demo agents at the time is what they were all being referred to, at least back then, where it was replacing a function. But you talked about that as helping to inform the buyer, right? Informing the buyer in their decision journey, which if I think about me going out and trying to buy something, if I can go on and I'm not being served this instead of being able to talk to someone, but before I talk to someone, go through this process to get most of my questions answered, making my face-to-face interactions more meaningful and less them having to inform me, that's, I think, a benefit for both parties, right? You're saving the sales team time because then they're having more meaningful conversations. And as a buyer, I'm spending less time trying to figure things out. I can do a lot more self-service, which is what people want nowadays.
Yep. They don't want to talk to a chat. I mean, like chats are like 10 years very rule based. And what they really want to do is it's giving voice to your website, firstly, because I always believe website is your first product where people land, right? And giving voice to your website, which means when I am looking and then I'm coming in and how your website has a voice, I can chat and I can understand, I can talk to it, right? And I can have a video conversation with it quickly. And it's great if it can actually show me demos of what it could be, assets like we talked about. And then now I'm well aware of what it is. And then the pre-sales comes in straight up. And then things are getting very tactical around it. And I think the most important is pre-sales need to have visibility into what's happened in the buying journey so far. One of the things that lacks a little bit is they do a prep call before ahead of time who they're going to chat with. But a lot of times they lack the knowledge of the buying journey visits that their user has taken, right? And it's important, I feel, today in 2026, like I think a pre-sales person knows. They visit the website, they talk to my RepEx, they had this conversation. Here is a transcript of what they spoke, of what they were interested in. Now, I'm getting on a call to them. I'm not talking about like how my analytics dashboard looks like. I know they have a GCP that I need to integrate with. Let's get tactical. Talk about how many Kubernetes clusters you're running in my GCP that I need to integrate. So now as a pre-sales, he's very tactical about everything in the conversation. Now, that's what buyers want. So that data is lacking. And I think pre-sales teams today like have to make sure like they're embracing AI quickly and getting all the data in there so that we're ready for all these conversations too.
I think you're absolutely right. No one wants the experience that we've all had with customer service where you enter your information, then you talk to a person, and they ask for the same information again. It's like, why did I just enter this before? People's expectation is if I've been interacting with you in any way, you should know that. You should have it on hand when you talk to me. I think you're absolutely right with that. We're almost out of time here. So 2 things I want to ask before we go. First, very simple. How can people get more in touch with you if they're interested in learning more about this? How can they find out more about Storylane and RepEx, which has just come out? Where can they go for that information?
To get in touch with me, LinkedIn is easiest. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. Talk a lot about what we're building and also give a lot of suggestions on company building itself. So great way is getting in touch on the LinkedIn. If not, email me, nalin@storylane.io. Always open to it. If you want to learn more about RepEx, you will go to our website and see what RepEx is about. And actually, you'll be able to talk to our agent there. And we call our RepEx as a Lily, and you can talk to the agent. That's the best way to experience. I recommend everybody. So go talk to our agent, see what it looks like. And now imagine yourself what it would look like for your own product and how a buying journey would look like. Because that's a great way to experience what Storylane is as well.
Just try it out for yourself, for sure. And final question, final thoughts to leave with people. If you had to give pre-sales leaders one piece of advice about what they should do over the next 12 to 18 months, what would that be?
My biggest piece of advice for them will be think like pre-sales is going to become strategists. So they're going to build a relationship. It's coming. A lot more of their time is going to be on that. To make that happen, you as a pre-sales leader, what I would recommend is invest in the tools, the right tools, the AI tools, right tools. Don't look at short term. Look at it as a long term. Don't look at something to be ripped off in 3 months. Oh, it didn't work for another while. Think a long-term investment and put in the effort. That is what I would recommend. Build that center of excellence, right, in the pre-sales org and drive that. Because you're not looking just for the next 3 months or a quarter, but look at it long-term and then start doing that.
Excellent. Great advice. I really appreciate you joining the show. Thank you again for joining us and providing some great knowledge and things I think about for this year and beyond.
Thanks so much for having me, Jack. It was fun.
Thank you for listening to the Presales Podcast by Presales Collective. Did you know that we also post on the Presales Collective blog following each episode? Head there to read through information on shows you might have missed or find another past episode to listen to. For more information on the Presales Podcast itself and to listen to those past episodes, visit presalescollective.com/podcast.